is. So hit record. Awesome. Thanks everyone, and welcome to the July edition of the My Million Year Monthly Speaker Series. I'm your host, Bryant, and joining me is my co-host, Ed. We're both life coaches, and our goal is to help our community members realize and achieve their dreams. This month, we celebrate Independence Day, recognizing the history of America and the continued pursuit of happiness and freedom for all its people. I hope all of you had a lovely July 4th holiday. Now, our meetup this month is called Hot Commodity, not because our guest works for Coinbase, which is the top cryptocurrency exchange platform on the market today. No, the real hot commodity is our guest himself, Leo Chen. Remarkably, 2 months after Leo joined Coinbase, the company went public. And actually, Leo has a stunning track record of joining like 3 unicorns immediately before a major IPO or M&A activity. So we'll be talking to him about how to make career transitions, what makes him a hot commodity to good employers. But before we get there, it's our financial tip of the month. So Ed, what's our tip?
All right, thanks, Brian. So our tip of the month this month is called a Roth conversion ladder. And what it's for is helping you access your retirement funds before traditional retirement age. So something that you probably hear about a lot when you put money into a 401k or an IRA is that it's for retirements. And that's true, that's what it was intended for. But you can actually access it well before typical retirement age. So we're going to walk through that now in this slide here. So typically you can access your retirement accounts at 59.5 penalty free. The government allows you to invest in a lot of cases pre-tax or post-tax, but there are benefits for having money in a 401k or an IRA. But they want you to usually take that money out only in retirement, because that's what it's for. And that's when you get all the benefits. But and if you don't, they charge you with a 10% penalty, which is pretty steep. So there are ways around this, but it requires, excuse me, pretty good planning. So this technique is called a Roth conversion ladder. And instead of remaking my own graphic, this graphic is from a blogger called Mad Scientist, which I think explains the process pretty well, and then we'll talk a bit in more detail. So step one is probably what you're already doing now, just putting money into a retirement account, all the good things you've heard about, saving money, why you want it in a 401k. If you retire early, which is a goal of mine and a goal that I hope many of you aspire to, early in this case is pretty much any time before 59.5. The next step after if you have multiple employers, you've probably done this before, is transferring your money out of 401k into a traditional IRA. So if you retire early, you would take the money out of your company's 401k account and put it into your own traditional IRA. So it's nothing crazy here yet. This is really when the Roth conversion starts. So you can convert money in your traditional IRA account into a Roth account. So it's going into a pre-tax retirement account into a post-tax retirement account. And when you do this, this triggers a tax event. So when you move money from pre-tax to post-tax, you get taxed on whatever amount you are converting in the year that you are doing it. The beauty of doing it when you're in retirement is you generally don't have any income. So when you are saving the money pre-tax, when you're working, maybe your tax brackets are 30%, your marginal tax brackets are probably 30%, 20%. When you're converting in retirement, they're closer to 0. So you essentially save the money, saving 30%, and now when you're taking the money out, it's now at 0%, depending on how strategic you can be with your conversions. So once you convert from traditional to Roth, a piece of the money, so you wouldn't convert all of it, right? So if you took your, I don't know, $500,000 retirement account, you wouldn't want to convert all of that from traditional to Roth in 1 year, because then that's the equivalent of having a $500,000 income for that year. So the tax would be really high. You'd want to break that apart a bit and spread that across your retirement. So once you convert that, you pay taxes that year, whatever amount that is. And the trick here is that you have to wait 5 years before you're able to actually withdraw the money without penalty. So planning here is really important because whatever you convert in year 1, you can't take that money out until year 6, unless you take the penalty. But after those 5 years, you can withdraw whatever you converted without any penalty. So this is how you get money out of your retirement accounts without paying any penalties and before your actually traditional retirement age, which is 59.5. So this is what this looks like. So let's say you retired this year, and presumably you're retired, you have no income, but you have a lot of money in your traditional IRA pre-tax. This is what it could look like if you were trying to withdraw $12,500 each month, or $12,550 each month. So the first 5 years you would do this each year, a piece of it at a time. That's why it's like a ladder. And you wouldn't be able to withdraw for the first 5 years any of this. But after the 5th year, you can start making these withdrawals without any penalty. So in year 2026, this 12,550 is essentially the one that you converted in 2021, and so on, and that kind of goes on and on. You would want to spread this out across your retirement, and you wouldn't have to pay any taxes on it, and you don't have any penalty. So are there any guesses why I chose 12,550? It's a very, very exact number here. So 12,550 is the standard deduction federal rate. So you have an exemption right off the bat. If you make $12,550 a year, you don't pay any taxes. So I picked this number to show how you could take money out of a pre-tax retirement account and convert it to after tax without actually paying any taxes on it, if you spread this out. So all of this money, if you don't have any other income, would be tax-free, essentially, even though it's in a pre-tax right now. So depending on how strategic you are with your withdrawals, you can have a pretty low tax rate. And obviously, the earlier you retire, the more you can benefit from this because you have more years of time where you don't have any income. So this is one way you can withdraw money tax-free. There are a couple of other ones. One would be it's called the 72T. We're not going to talk too much about that one here, but you can actually kind of bypass this 5-year window by taking your entire IRA balance and then kind of dividing it based on, there's a bunch of these actuarial tables that the government has where you essentially break up your IRA amount into what they call substantially equal payment periods, SEP, and you can withdraw that way without penalty. The trick there is that you don't have the flexibility of withdrawing however much you want. You have to stick to the tables that the government essentially tells you is like equal withdrawals. Here, you can change this however you want. So 1 year, maybe you want 12,550. Another year, maybe you have more expenses that you're expecting in a couple of years, so maybe you withdraw 40,000. You wouldn't be able to do that with the 72T. You'd have to take equal kind of distributions. I'm going to pause there for any questions on this technique. Cool. So this is definitely a bit more advanced. The next month, we'll talk even more in depth on withdrawal strategy because this is a key component of withdrawal strategy in retirement, of how you minimize your taxes, which really eat away at your savings. But we'll talk a bit more of a complete strategy of how you would use both pre-tax, post-tax, and like regular taxable brokerage accounts in retirement to really minimize your taxes. Because ideally, you would have money in each of these buckets, and you would have a lot of flexibility for how you would withdraw. So this is one example, just on really the pre-tax side of how you get money out of your pre-tax accounts before retirement and at very low tax rates. All right, I will pass it back to Bryant then.
All right, thanks, Ed. That's a really good tip. I think as we get closer to retirement, we want to be thinking about the ways that we can access our money without losing that retirement money, in the form of taxes. So, planning ahead, is definitely important, and having a combination of tax advantage accounts like Roth IRAs, traditional IRAs, 401ks is really important. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
All right, we're now on to our community building segment. This is where we will break out into breakout groups and discuss a particular topic for the month. We'll spend about 10 minutes discussing, and then we'll head back to the main room for the final piece of the event. So today's community building question is cryptocurrency. Do you love it or hate it? Are you invested or just curious? If you're invested, what coins are you into? Discuss. So Ed will take us to the breakout rooms. I hope everyone had a good discussion in the breakouts. Feel free to share some of your comments and thoughts from that discussion in the chat. Share with the others what you thought about crypto. Love it or hate it. So I think we probably had some good discussions in the breakout rooms, and I'm curious to get everyone's thoughts. But now on to the main event. We are here to talk to my good friend Leo Chen. Leo, for some background, he's currently a product manager at Coinbase, one of the leading cryptocurrency exchange platforms on the market. As mentioned before, Leo worked for 2 months at Coinbase before they went public earlier this year. Before that, Leo was a product manager at Lyft for about 2 months before their IPO. And before that, he started working at Jet.com days before Walmart announced their acquisition. I think his career is somewhat of a leading indicator for what company will pop next. With that, please welcome Leo Chen. Leo, we're so glad to have you today.
Thank you so much, and really thank you so much for having me today too. So it's really a pleasure. I had an opportunity to actually share a little bit about myself with the team here too. Yeah.
That's great. So maybe for the first question, Leo, tell us a little bit about where you got your start, where you grew up, where you went to school, and kind of the early days in your career.
Yes. So I actually grew up in China. I got my undergrad degree there in computer science and software engineering. Wuhan University, actually, where the pandemic started. And then I came to US for master at Columbia in management science and engineering program, which is a program that's offered in conjunction with engineering school and business school. So some sort of it is like taking business courses, some sort of it is about mathematical modeling. And then started my career. My first job is being a consultant at EY. That's also how I got to know Brian and a lot of people on the call. And I've been in US for about 8 years since now. Yeah, since then. Yeah.
And why did you decide to start in consulting? Before you went into kind of the startup world. What brought you to consulting?
Yes, great question. So there's two things. Number one is I've always been interested in like creating solution for real world problems with like technology. So PM and the consultant has been my go-to options there. And number two is English is not my first language, but I think communication is extremely important in the career I want to pursue. So consulting, I know, has this mechanism that's established to really help train the new grads like me and help me grow fast, develop those professional skills in terms of communication and even some good habits that I need to succeed. So that's why I think consulting was like, oh yeah, great solution. And to date, I'm still really grateful for all the skills I obtained, habits I formed at UI, and also all those mentors I've actually connected with, and all the advice that helped me along the way. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, I having had the same background, I also feel that with problem solving, consulting does kind of force you into a lot of uncertain or new situations where you have to think on your feet and be really adaptable. So you learn to be flexible, and definitely communication skills, because of client role. Any role that you have that faces off with clients is going to strengthen your communication skills. So that makes a lot of sense. Now, Leo, what made you decide to then, leave EY, leave a good career at EY, and then go to your first stop, Jet.com?
Yes, I think that as I mentioned earlier, it's like PM and the consultant has always been my role. I would like to have a little bit more ownership now that I've trained myself for a year or so at EY, and then I just ran into this great opportunity at Jet.com, where they're actually finding a new PM helping launch its fresh growth business. So I just decided to go. Yeah, and so I haven't been a PM before, so it's like also a good opportunity for me to explore, try out. Do I really prefer being a consultant, or do I really prefer to be a PM? Yeah.
Right. So, as kind of your first role as a product manager, were you like nervous at all about the transition? How did you approach searching for new roles, and how did you prepare yourself to make the jump?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. So actually, I've adopted this model throughout my career. Now, that's like every other 1 or 2 years, I prepare myself and try to actively interview. There's a few things, a few benefits you can get from it. One is where yourself is in the market. For example, whether you're getting underpaid. And then the other thing is, in this process, you need to, for example, prepare your behavior question, write up your resume. In this process, you can say, oh, hey, I'm actually getting this experience from this, but in the job description I was looking for, they are looking for the other experiences. So maybe I should do a little bit more in my current job so I can get those experiences. Or like, oh, maybe I should try to practice a little bit more presentation skills or executive communication. So that actually is one way for me just to check myself on how can I do better or learn more in my current job. And the third one is just in general, I think interview itself is like an opportunity for you to restudy a lot of the theoretical knowledge or theories you have. For example, there are certain methodologies or certain frameworks you could use in interview. The reason you use it in the interview is because it's actually something you can apply in your day job, right? So that's another opportunity I do. So I tend to do this exercise like every 1 or 2 years, just trying to prepare myself and do like sort of like a checkpoint to recheck and to interview. So when I first joined the PM, it's the same thing. I prepared myself when I was preparing for the interview. And then get there definitely like some big changes here because like as a consultant, you are more like serving your client, you make suggestions, and your client make the ultimate call. But as a PM, you actually are the owner of the product. You have to make the decisions, but it also takes all the responsibilities. So that's definitely one of the big shift for me. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah, I think it's interesting to view, to your point, the interview process or preparing for interviews as its own learning experience, right? To retrain yourself, as you mentioned, and to also benchmark yourself to the market to understand what you're worth. I think is a really great point. I definitely do, advise a lot of my mentees like on the same thing. It's healthy to always like check in the market, check for roles that are similar to yours, just to see like, hey, am I being fairly paid? What's the market paying, these days for someone in my role? That's great. And that initial shift in mindset that you mentioned to go from let's say a client service advising role to now I'm the decision maker as a product manager. Now I'm making the decisions. I'm accountable and responsible for what happens or what goes right and what goes wrong. Was that difficult? Did you find any? Were there any challenges when you made the jump to Jet.com and started owning things for the first time? Were there any tough decisions you had to make?
Actually, I would say I've been incredibly fortunate to have great mentors or great supervisors along my career. So I actually got a lot of help when I joined because they know I didn't have direct PM experience. I actually got to observe a lot and to see. And I started with some really small projects to start with. So that actually wasn't that much of challenge for me to just do it. I just did it. But then when I think about it, or when I reflect on this one, I realized, oh, hey, when I made the decision, it actually has an impact right away on the customer. I should have thought more, and I should have a more structured approach to make all those decisions. it hit me more on when I was reflecting on it than when I first made the decision.
Right.
Yeah.
Has that made you more thoughtful now that you're years into, PM roles? Has that affected, how you make decisions now?
Yes. Now, like after years of this, I actually have sort of like, I think all the PM does this. You sort of develop your own like decision-making framework and your methodology.
Right.
When you're trying to approach the product decisions or the product problems. Yeah.
Right. Got it. So I want to move ahead now in time. So you spent a couple of years, I think, at Jet, and then decided to move to Lyft. Also in a PM role. What made you decide to go to Lyft, and what did you do there?
Yes. So that's a great question. So like I mentioned earlier, I've been doing this interview exercise recurring basis. I was actually super happy at Lyft. It was my sorry, actually take a step back. Your question is why did I decide to go to Lyft, right?
Yes.
So yes, as I mentioned, I was doing this exercise at Jet. We got acquired by Walmart later. We helped Jet launch its fresh grocery business. We feel we've reached one of the major milestones.
Right.
And then we sort of lost the startup feeling a little bit more and becoming more like corporate as like Walmart is taking over more and more.
Right.
And then I started resuming my like interview exercise because it's about like a year and a half now. So I ran into this great opportunity at Jet where they were trying to hire one of their first PM at New York. They're trying to launch this micromobility business. So I said, oh, this is a great opportunity for me. And I really loved the boss or like the supervisor I was chatting with too. I feel so in all, it's just like a great opportunity for me. So it's like let's do it. And also match the thing I was going to do also matched with my past experience at Jet or at EY. I was working on the marketplace team, helping building its all automation team and helping launch the micromobility business there. So yeah, that's a great opportunity. So I just decided to jump.
Oh, that's fantastic. And then yes, go ahead.
Sorry, just to add one more thing is also like as a PM, I believe I'm still in the early stage of my career. So I always think as a PM, one good thing is to get more exposure to different product and different industries and to learn about how different company does things. So you can like adjust your methodology and to get more exposure. Yeah.
Great. And so then again, you landed at Lyft, in 2019. And then again, just months after you joined, they IPO'd. What was that like? Like, did you have any idea that they were going to IPO? Was that a consideration in you going to Lyft? Was that a surprise? What was that like, kind of joining right before an IPO?
Yeah, so that's actually a surprise for me. It's also the same thing when Jet got acquired by Walmart. It's just like I joined and then like in a few weeks they were saying, hey, we are getting acquired. Hey, we are getting IPO'd. So it's definitely a big surprise for me there. I would say it's just being really fortunate. It's really more about I love the opportunity there. And got a lot. Yeah, I feel I'm really grateful again of all the people I met along the way that they convinced me to join. They told me about it's a great opportunity. But I don't know, it's just a pleasant surprise here.
Just a happy coincidence.
Yeah, it's a happy coincidence. But for Coinbase though, it's like I do heard some rumor about it might be IPO before I joined, so I just rushed through my interview process too.
I see. So let's jump to Coinbase then. For those of us who are not as familiar, what is Coinbase's business model? Like, how do they operate?
Yeah, so actually a lot of people would think Coinbase is the Coinbase's core revenue stream today is through the fees we charge in the crypto exchange. So a lot of people think Coinbase is just a crypto exchange platform, but actually Coinbase is trying to be way bigger than this. The vision of Coinbase is trying to make create a more open financial freedom, financial system,
Yes.
more open and more free financial system.
Mhm.
So we're actually trying to do everything that's crypto related. We are trying to. I think the one best sentence to describe this, to summarize this up, is we are trying to build all the product that we could to make crypto technology more beneficial to everyone, or like to make sure to allow everyone in the world to have access to crypto.
Right.
So but we started with the exchange because that's the most obvious one. Also because the crypto industry started with like cryptocurrency, so people were doing the exchange. But then I think recently we are trying to shift our gears. You might notice more things. We're doing a few things. On one hand, we're trying to build try to help build the financial system around crypto. We're introducing a lot of concepts that only existed in financing 1.0. For example, we are launching a prime brokerage that actually serves institutional clients. We are launching some borrow and lending product. We're launching credit card, etc. We are launching Coinbase Commerce that trying to inject that's trying to allow people to use crypto to buy and sell stuff, not just use it as like an investment vehicle. And then on the other hand, we're trying to support crypto as a platform. As we know, crypto is not just the coin, but it's also the underlying technology, like for example, the blockchain. We're trying to make it super easy for developers and for our consumers to like leverage this technology. So you think about it, in the long run, Coinbase will be more like an app store, where you can use one Coinbase account, your wallet, and you can access all the apps that's been built on blockchain, on crypto. You can buy NFTs, you can invest in DeFi through this app store, rather than just using this one. Coinbase Exchange might be one of the apps that's in the app store. But in overall, you have this underlying platform and the structure that we are trying to build for crypto there. That's number two. So we talked about supporting crypto in the financial system and supporting crypto as a platform. And then a third one, I think, is just trying to like really support crypto as its function today, like the investment. So that we are trying to build things like Coinbase Learn, where people can educate a little people more about crypto. We are trying to further our exchange practice. We're trying to support things like derivatives, margin trading, all those things. So you can actually treat crypto as an investment too. So those are the three mainstream of Coinbase. Yeah.
That's really interesting. And I think there's a lot to unpack there. I think the idea, how most of, I think, the public thinks of crypto as the investment vehicle, versus, actually the function and usage of cryptocurrency to buy goods and services. And I think sometimes there's a disconnect in that understanding of seeing it as purely a speculative investment to actually seeing it being used more as a currency, that as an actual means of exchanging value. Does that does Coinbase feel like there's going to be an impact on crypto's value the more it's used as a medium of exchange? So the more that people start using cryptocurrencies to actually buy and sell goods, products, services, how that would actually impact its value as a kind of speculative investment, the way it is right now. All right. I mean, if you're buying a currency and it's potentially tens of thousands of dollars to buy a single coin, how is that then also usable as a medium of buying goods and services that you might buy something that's worth $20, but you have a coin that's worth like $10,000. So how do you kind of like reconcile those two goals?
Yes, that's a great question. First of all, I can speak as myself. I probably won't be able to speak in
that's fine.
As Coinbase too.
We won't hold you to it.
Yeah. But I think it's like again, if you take a step back, the goal is trying to create a more open and free financial system that's built on crypto, that's crypto native. So we are not tied to one specific cryptocurrency. Just like in the current world, like you have currency that you use to trade and buy stuff, like USD, but you also have other currencies that you use for investment. like, I mean, equities or like stock, right? You sort of treat them as an investment, and you use those or gold, for example. You treat them as an investment. So it does, like, you can have specific token or currency that's just meant for like investment, but you can have other tokens or like currency that's used for daily exchange. For example, we have USDC, which is stable token that's directly tied to USD. It's like a one-to-one mapping to USD. That way, you actually remove the fluctuation or the volatility that you got, what a lot of you got from like Bitcoin, for example.
Right.
But you can use this to buy items. So it's not like one type of currency that you should do both. It's about like building this financial system that's around the blockchain, that's around decentralized. That's the main concept here, I believe. Yeah.
I see. Okay.
Yeah,
now,
I think the true innovation here comes from, like, say you remove the broker or the third party in there. In the traditional financial system, you always have this centralized exchange, you have this centralized broker, you have custodian, all those things. The key benefit you get from blockchain is just you can remove those centralized party, the third party here. You can have like the buyer and seller, whoever is using this can directly like communicate with each other. Yes, I think that's the key value you can get from it.
I think that then the success of the platform has to be people's confidence then in Coinbase maintaining the platform. And I think, there have been questions around, regulation and like how do we trust, in the transparency of, transactions, because, it's different than, how we currently think about like the US dollar. It is heavily regulated. There's a Federal Reserve, there's a system in place, with the US banks. Like how is that, like, or do you know if that's, how that's being contemplated, within Coinbase, to foster that same level of trust?
Yes, that's a great question. So just a few things. First of all, Coinbase is we call ourselves a compliance first company, where we actually in all those crypto players, we actually one of the most cooperative with all those regulators. For example, before we launch anything, we actually would do a pulse check with like Federal Reserve or SEC just to like confirm, it is okay to launch this. I don't think a lot of crypto companies or platforms does this there. And we actually, and I actually don't think this is a constraint, but more of an opportunity. It's like, if you acknowledge that, if you think this is something that's going to become mainstream, then one thing you have to admit that is regulation will come eventually.
Yes.
And it's just in process gradually. So actually it would be rather just to collaborate with the regulators and help define this policy and help lead the industry with those like compliance exercises, which is because this is also actually aligned with our goal. Our goal is to create like a open, free financial system, but it's not like but we also want to have proper like regulations or like I would say monitoring in place, so bad actors cannot just exploit it, right? So you can see Coinbase is actually, I would say Coinbase is actually one of the leaders in this space there. But in terms of communicating this to customer, that's definitely there's definitely more things we can do to communicate that. But again, I think it's like a gradually evolving process.
It'll take time.
Yeah.
That's good. Now, I want to make sure I leave time for the audience, because I know we're going to get some questions, from people on the line. So I want to open up either the chat, or if people want to directly ask questions to Leo, please feel free to go ahead, and Ed can help moderate that. Any questions from the audience that you'd like to bring up to Leo?
Got nothing in the chat so far, but I have a question for Leo. Could you talk about a little bit about the actual transition of the work from being a consultant to working as a product manager? Like, are you working with a lot of different types of people? Is it a lot more technical? How were you able to make that career kind of transition in terms of the role you're actually doing?
Yes, that's a great question. So I think to answer that question, we should first help define what is a PM, because they really have a really different definition here.
Right.
The most cliched version is if you just search online, they will be say you're the mini CEO of a product, you're the owner of the product where you own the P&L. Versus as a consultant, you just like you present to your client, but you don't directly own the P&L. Once you present your project or proposal, you probably won't worry too much about how does it perform afterwards, or like say like but you might have a continued project to improve, I guess. But just to be more specific on what does PM do here, just go back to our original question, what is a PM? I think a few things that come to my mind. First thing is you need to create an inspiring vision and help define the business goal for the product you own, which is not, and then you need to communicate them effectively to everyone on your team to convince them. So you gather the crowd, the critical mass around you towards the same goal. And then you try to make sure your team is moving towards that vision at the right order and right speed through prioritization and planning. And then after that, you need to constantly adjust your goal, your roadmap, and your plan based on the user feedback and experimentation results you get. I would say those are the probably 4 core things PM needs to do. I think as a consultant, you have a little bit about creating the vision, and most times you probably have the vision that's already defined in the framework of the business goal defined. You are trying to create this roadmap and the strategy plan to help your client to get there. The communication part of it, you just need to communicate to your client, but your client probably need to take your proposal and communicate it to other teams to actually get a buy-in. So that's one big difference. And then in the end, the actual decision-making process, as I mentioned earlier, it's like more on, you have more aspect on that for PM versus consultant. I don't know if that answered your question.
No, it did. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Great question, Ned. Any other questions from the audience? I definitely have more I can ask myself. But
looks like
Jenny
raising her hand. Go for it.
Hey, Leo, I really enjoy your presentation. I have been using Coinbase for a year. I would say that I see a lot of improvements since I first started, and definitely a lot of new product, new features. So you played a big role in this process, and congrats. And my question is, I'm actually very into the cryptoverse. So I tried many different products and different companies. And so when you make decision, for example, like you decided to design a product, in that process, there are definitely a lot of other competitors in the market. There are also regulations that you need to consider. How do you balance those? For example, when the regulation changes or you see the new product roll out by your competitors, but you're in the process of designing a product, what are the most important things you will consider when you make a decision in terms of adjusting your roadmap or some other strategies?
Yes, that's a great question. So for that actually is like sort of like just going back to how do you make product decisions or strategy decisions for a roadmap? How do you define your vision? I will say one thing, at least for me, I can speak for myself as a PM when I make decision, is you should definitely consider your competitors. You should think about when you come up with a plan, you should think about your competitive advantage. What is your core value versus what is your strength versus weakness compared to your competitors? But you shouldn't let your competitors' product to impact your product decision too much. But at the end of the day, we are trying to solve the problem for your customers. So, for example, if you see a competitor and he or she launched a great product, get great traction, and a lot of customers use it, I think that the right action is not just to look at a product and say, hey, they're doing this is great, we should have it, but to really think about, hey, why do customer likes them? Why do user likes them? What is the underlying problem they are solving? Okay, now with this problem, with our strengths and weakness, can we solve this better? Or can we have our own unique way to solve it? And then just develop our vision for our own product and do it. And in most cases, like you mentioned, if we already have our vision defined, the problem or the user space we tackled, even though our competitor launched something, if it's something really similar to our vision, then that just sort of confirms that we are doing it correctly. And then we just need to make sure we deliver on time. And then if it's really different, then maybe it's because it will be a good like thing to check, interesting to check, but maybe it's just because they have really different strengths. They're in different location. For example, Coinbase has global presence. Coinbase has a strong compliance led, but some companies they don't. For example, like you might see some exchange like FX. They are doing some crazy derivatives or tradings, but the reason they can do it is because they don't need to worry too much about compliance. But because we are a compliance first company, we're like, oh, we shouldn't do this until we actually get a buy-in from regulators. So it's really about the strengths and weaknesses of the company and the vision you're trying to achieve. That's my answer.
Yeah, that's really good. I do see that a lot of users eventually moved from like Binance and FTX back to Coinbase because they feel that they're more regulated and they feel safer to use Coinbase. So that's a very good point. Thanks.
Actually, that you mentioned that like one example that comes to your mind is when we launched our lending product, where like people borrowing product. Sorry, when people can put their crypto as a collateral and then borrow money from Coinbase, or they can lend their money to us. The interest rate we offer is relatively lower than like what BlockFi or the other companies was doing. But then we know things they're doing behind the scenes. It's like, oh wait, this is not going to be sustainable. There's no way they can sustain this. And then in the long run, you notice they actually start to drop their rate, and we see the customers just come back themselves. Yes, just like you mentioned. Yeah.
Thank you.
So I'll jump in here. I'm one of those customers. Maybe that's why Jenny said that. So yeah, I'm one of those customers. I actually was early on the Coinbase usage party, and congrats. I don't know if you joined Coinbase at that time, but it was middle of last year. I haven't seen your profile, so
not yet.
I guess middle of last year. It was like the height of the pandemic. That's I was bored out of my mind, so I joined.
Leo only joins right before IPOs.
I know that's true.
His,
yeah,
so Coinbase just IPO'd earlier this year, so Leo
that's
just
true,
like
yeah.
right before the IPO, Leo's like, I gotta get in.
That's when Leo
exactly
joins.
That's his rule.
Yeah,
he knows.
Yeah, insider trading is a good thing. So no, but I joined Coinbase probably at the height of the pandemic last year, and then a glitch happened.
Yeah.
So then like one glitch followed by another glitch, and then it was like it totally blocked like one of the transactions in terms of getting money out to another platform, like one of your competitors. So, but because one of your competitors had a glitch recently, I went back to Coinbase, and then ironically, I realized how much you have improved since you've joined Lingwei. So you're a great product manager, because like now there's all kinds of the UX is like amazing. Like I can do all kinds of stuff on there. So I guess the question here is, how do you scale the app to be tuned to the next release as institutions actually in-house all these functionalities more and more, like a BNY Mellon?
Yes. So that's a great question. So actually take a step back there. We definitely see a lot of issues in things media last year. That's like a hike of volume, sort of unexpected. So it's definitely way above like the limits that we can handle when we designed it for. So there's actually a lot of initiatives like called Code Red across companies. It's sort of like all hands on deck situation. The entire company spent a lot of effort to make sure we can support like 10 times or like 100 times the volume that we have going forward. Hopefully the system become more reliable for you going forward there. And back to your question, how do we support this for institution? When you say that, I want to confirm, just to clarify that a little bit. When you say that, are you talking about like say, is the product facing retail customers, or are you talking about the product that's facing institutional investors?
So
like
yeah,
that's brokerage.
That's a great point, because there's this segue, right? There's like this separation between the general public or the end user and the institution.
Yeah.
So as end users get more involved from a consumer level, like the conversation you had with Bryant, the day-to-day use versus, just speculative investing. And then there's the institutional side of the blockchain, like every coin having its own function within the ecosystem. How does Coinbase fit into the ecosystem?
Yeah, so I think I tried to actually share that a little bit early when I chatted about Coinbase main strategy here. I think one thing is Coinbase is trying to become a platform first company. We are building everything that you need to explore the amazing crypto world. There's a lot of innovations, DeFi, different apps, different like usages. But ideally, in the end of the day, you will be like, you can go through all this, use your Coinbase account. You can go through all this, use your Coinbase wallet. Just go to your Coinbase app. Imagine you can right now go to the Coinbase app. The first thing you see is the exchange. You go there and it's the exchange. You can trade. And then imagine there's other tabs. When you go into your Coinbase app, you can actually go to an app store where you see, oh, hey, there's this Uniswap. Oh, hey, there's this DeFi NFT marketplace. Oh, actually, another one is my NFT gallery. I can see all my NFT here. You imagine you can just go through everything, access everything you want within crypto world just through one simple Coinbase app. That also allows you to build one thing that's what we call an identity or decentralized identity, where you can just use one set of password, one set of like account. You only need to fill in know your customer information once, right? That will actually allow you to, like, for example, borrow money, buy stuff, like create store, or even like create your own DAO, like decentralized organization, all those things that you can do just through Coinbase. That's our vision, is trying to become a platform first company. And we want to encourage DeFi as much as we can. As you can see right now, it's all more CeFi. It's a centralized exchange. Everything goes through us. But we want to become more DeFi, where everyone can contribute, so we can actually make it grow faster. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
So this is more like a Web3, right? Like similar to Trust Wallet that had the browser.
Yes, there was definitely some technical difficulties there. For example, there's a security concerns with wallet, but we do have some innovation inside that actually help us address those problems that will make us more comfortable to support those things now. Yeah.
Got it. Those are great questions, Mark, Jenny. Thanks for that discussion. So I know we're a little bit over time now, but I think, from this discussion, this very engaging topic, we'll definitely have to bring Leo back sometime in the future, and I'm sure Coinbase will make more leaps and bounds in its platform. But first, I want to thank Leo for joining us this Sunday morning. It's been a pleasure talking to you, Leo. I think we've learned a lot about your career transition process, as well as the impacts you've had on multiple startups as a PM, and learned quite a bit about crypto and where Coinbase is taking their platform. So thank you so much for really engaging the conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to chat with everyone. Yes.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone in the audience for joining us. We will be back next month with another meetup and another speaker. So stay tuned. We'll talk to you all soon. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.